Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Loreweek. I am, as ever and as always, your host, the Runner. As usual, I like to open Loreweek with something I want everyone to get a hold of. Want to get a hold of everyone with? There are still a few people I'm trying to get a hold of for donation redistribution that I haven't seen. These include Muddy 120, Not Blessed, Light 2099, Jazzy Too Good, Durable Diction, Lord of Mordor, and SJNM and Nixkatoon. If you're any of these people, please get a hold of me. That stuff might happen. So, show news. Oops, that's the wrong button. That's the right button. First thing I want to mention is the list has gotten a bit of... My god, no! Kara, why noise? The list has gotten a little bit of an update. For those of you who haven't seen it, that's fine. That's cool. I've already gotten one person who's confused by it, which that's not great. But, you know, whatever. We'll figure it out, I suppose. Yeah, I'm going to be playing Drakengard again. But yeah, no, there's, you can actually now type !list into chat to get a link to the list. It's been reorganized a little bit to try and make it a little bit easier to see and a little bit more manageable and blah, 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 blah. There's also, in case you missed it, the old archives page. That's a thing. The audit thing is the next thing I want to talk about, I suppose. Actually, real quick. Some people are wondering what's going on with the Avengers game. I just thought I'd mention we did actually get a hold of everyone who was the primary funders for that. And they all said, let's leave it there until it gets axed. If it gets axed, you can redistribute. So, Avengers is just going to sit there until the plug gets pulled, and then it'll be axed, most likely. I'll set out a small disclaimer to the list, simply for legal reasons. Nothing really to worry about there. Nothing has actually changed. It is the exact same thing it always has. That's just there to clarify on the off chance someone decides to get uppity. Damn it, Muhammad Elvis. Alright, let's destroy Muhammad Elvis really quick here. If a game gets funded, that's different. That's the queue. But if a game does not get funded, then we're having issues. So what's the problem, Muhammad Elvis? I don't understand the question here. So let's talk about... Make sure Voot happens. Oh yeah, if it somehow, by some absolute miracle, magically gets funded, I want to stress this. No one's put money towards the Avengers run in over a year. Like, people put money towards Avengers and then stopped doing it, and it's just sat there, untouched, for over a year. I don't think it's getting funded. To be completely blunt. Just saying. Anywho, so, yeah, so let's talk about money. Tomorrow, we are going to go ahead and play Coteries of New York. That's a Vampire the Masquerade game. I was actually thinking about pushing it off for various reasons I'll talk about in just a moment. But we'll go ahead and probably Kara White Noise. All the money that was put towards it was before the game came out. Literally all of it. Nobody's donated towards Avengers since it has come out. I find that hysterical. Anyways, we're playing Coteries of New York tomorrow. And that's a really short game. There's actually a really good chance we will finish that game tomorrow, which is awesome. That'll leave us with only 3-ish games left in the jank block, all 3 of which are N64 games. Oh god, I'm gonna die. Anyways. Did you know you can go to the queue, Muhammad Elvis, and that will tell you the upcoming list of what games are next. You can also type !upcoming into chat right now, or !next, I believe, in order to get a link to the exact same page. If that doesn't get it across, then I've clearly failed at visual design. You know, it's really funny. I do actually have all of those N64 games that we're about to play right here. There's Quest 64, there's Diddy Kong Racing, and here's Banjo-Tooie. But obviously getting an N64 hooked up and Well, I mean, I could do that. I do have the power to do that, but that would just be a colossal pain, so... We'll see how that works out. Anyways. Coteries. I keep trying to talk about this. Tuesday, I'm not going to stream at all. Normally, I take the latter half of Tuesday to help my sister out. Just to help her out with whatever it is she needs help with. Lately, it's been lawn stuff. A lot of lawn stuff. Oh my god, it's been lawn stuff for over a month at this point. But the point is, no, next works. Exclamation mark next works. Try it. Try it, Act. I just checked. It's right there. Exclamation mark next. My sister would like to get gardening this year. And if anybody knows anything about gardening, you know that there's seasons where you have to, you know, get stuff in and get it planted before you're actually going to get any result out of it, right? That means in order to do that, we need to get finished with the front yard. So I'm going to take Tuesday off and just go over and spend the whole damn day killing myself trying to get some of that. I want to get that front yard done. For those of you not aware, this is the vines. I've referenced it a few times. We're ripping up ivy. I hate ivy. God, I hate ivy so much. It's just the worst. Now, there was, I gotta share this. There was one vine about that thick around that was growing up the tree trunk, right? Now, that's been chopped off, so that's dead and done. But I was trying to rip the rest of the primary vine off the trunk. I failed. To explain this, it reached a point where I could hold the vine and just dangle there, my feet off the ground, the vine supporting the full 215 pounds that I am, just sitting there, just dangling in midair, and it would not come loose. Anyways, so yeah, Tuesday no streams because I'm going to be ripping vines out of the ground. I honest to God wish I could just take a flamethrower to it. But since she actually wants to garden there, this isn't just, you know, a temporary thing. That means we're probably going to go ahead and actually have to dig through and pull through the roots. And it's just a colossal... I hate it. I hate doing it. But it needs to be done. It needs to be done. So... But I'm also probably not going to stream Wednesday. Or Thursday. Or Friday. Or... Hear me out for a second. Some of you may or may not know that we've got an audit project that we've been inactive for about a week at this point. Now, the audit project takes time. It just takes time to go through and, you know, get the figures put in and all that. And once everything's put in, which I'm not even done with that, that's step one, is getting everything put in. Once it's put in, then we have to go through and do the actual audit of all of the existing reviews. For those of you not familiar with what I'm talking about, I think you could type in a command, but here, I'll just link it in chat. There you go, boom. Let's just skip over that. This is trying to build in standardization to the review process. Now, this is something we've always been doing. This is something that's always been the goal. The catch is, for those of you who haven't heard me, sorry, I know this is repetition for some of you. The catch is, we needed to standardize the system reviewing first, which we've been doing since Oblivion. Oblivion was the first game. And since, from Oblivion to now, we've been using one system, and I'm fairly cohesive with it, and I think it's good enough that I don't think it's going to have any major overhauls going forwards. If you're paying attention, it's like the 5th overall review system we've used. So we've got an existing review system, and we've got a decent amount of games that we have already reviewed, so we can now use those to build the audit list. So we are now currently building the audit list. That's what I'm doing there with that spreadsheet. Thank you very much, Shadow Machine. You were awesome as always. I'll put that to Portals too. And in so doing, the goal is to then go back and adjust previous runs up and down in order to accommodate the new standards. There's other ways to do this, but I'm kind of a, you know, visual person, so that's why I'm doing color-coded and, you know, a spreadsheet that I can just look at and cross-reference and blah, blah, blah. I'm down to the D's, as you can see if you're paying attention there. I got a lot more to do, but the point is, here's the thing. This is why we're not going to be streaming until this is done. Because this, you can check yourself, Zactef, this is We just finished the review of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. Now, I firmly stand behind the score that we gave Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. If you don't remember what that score is, I will remind you that it was plus 22, negative 16. Now, several people expressed shock at that score, and for good reason, because that is one of the worst gameplay scores we've ever given a game. But the problem is, that's a victim of this standardization thing. We've technically reviewed other games which probably should be down there in terms of gameplay score, but because we hadn't used the current system back then, you see the problem. And we've officially reached the point where current games are kind of being hampered with regards to how they're rated versus older games by virtue of the fact that the older games are not standardized. So rather than continue to get like 1 or 2 games audited every day, I'm just going to hit the stream brakes and stop streaming until I've finished the audit project in its entirety. And that way, when we get started back with the N64 stuff, we're good to go. For those of you who don't care about the nitty-gritty, all you need to know is that I'm not streaming until this is done. Not counting today. We will be having our 2 streaminations today, and we will be streaming Vampire the Masquerade Coteries of New York tomorrow, and probably finishing it tomorrow. But after that, until we're done. Alright, so. Yeah, it's completely deserved. I'm sorry. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines has an absolutely atrocious design when it comes to gameplay. It deserves to be that far down. But the problem is there are other games that also deserve to be that far down. Like Anthem isn't anywhere near that far down. Just to use one example. How long do I feel it takes? Oh, I have no idea. Because the first step I'm doing right now is filling out the list. The second thing I'm going to be doing is actually doing the audit. And that's the thing I have no idea how long that's going to take. So, anyways. As usual, don't worry. I will, of course, be streaming 12 hours a day. Like I always, I mean, by streaming, I mean working 12 hours a day. Like I always do, so don't worry. I'm still trying to kill myself. Don't worry about this. Will this also apply to board game nights? No. We will still be D&Ding this coming Thursday, especially since I need Guido and Sis to be there so we can figure out what's going on with that. I think that's everything. I should probably mention, some of you may or may not have noticed that there's a big question mark on the upcoming page, excuse me, which is called Lore's Block. So this is something I've been debating doing, and honestly, the audit project takes higher priority, which is why this hasn't happened yet. I've been debating just going ahead and filling out some games that I just kind of want to play and making that the lore block. But I think what I'm going to do instead is never play a game I want to play again. No, I'm kidding. What I think I'm actually going to do instead is, if you may or may not have noticed the changes to the list, you may notice that there's actually a completely separate page for Lore Runner's Picks, which there's a whole navigational thing you can go through now. Now, there's a couple games on that, but that's not even half the games on my list of the games I would like to play. What I'm thinking about doing is adding every game I want to play, just all of them, to the list, 100% of them, and just dump them on that page and see what happens, for lack of a better way to put it, and see if any of those get interest or see if any of those get funding. And if they do, then hey, and if they don't, whatever. And then Lore Runner's Block, assuming we get there, would be just me reallocating dealer's choice to that. Because remember, I haven't allocated a dealer's choice to anything for a long time. We're approaching the year and 9 months range at this point for not reallocating dealer's choice. So I have a couple in the bank, is what I'm trying to say. I think that's it. So yeah, super summary for those of you who care. We'll do the 2 streaminations today. There will be no secondary stream because I'm going to watch King Kong versus Godzilla with my friend Third. Then tomorrow we're going to stream Vampire the Masquerade Coteries and hopefully beat it. And then no streams until I'm done with the fricking audit block. And hopefully I'll finish the goddamn front yard on Tuesday. Alright. Now I only have random news for the rest of you. And that first bit of random news is from Ankros. Thank you very much, Ankros. Very, very much appreciate those subs, as always. I'll put that towards Mass Effect 2. Now that we've got that bit of news out of the way. I'm not even going to update the thing. Well, I guess I could update it. It makes it easier to keep track. Alright, fine. Or I could hit the wrong button and make this whole thing take several seconds longer. Amazon's Lord of the Rings game got canceled. Amazon, which has more money than Solomon, apparently does not know how to make a video game. I mean, they tried to make an FPS and it was so boring and generic that died. They tried to make an MMO which was so boring and generic that it had to be pulled back. And then they tried to make a Lord of the Rings game and that was so terrible that it died. No, that's not true. There's actually a different reason for this one. The reason for this one is actually really simple. Tencent. Now, that is admittedly part speculation, part fact, so take that with a grain of salt. But Amazon has walked into a lot of negotiations with Tencent with regards to contracts. Those negotiations have fallen apart, and as a consequence, those contracts have been null and voided, which means the game itself is not happening. If you remember, the game was actually being developed by, I forget the name of them, which is a company that is wholly owned by Tencent. So that's neat. If you type in !Voot, you'll see the Voot Imperial Star Destroyer. Now, this is canceled, to be clear. All of the developers on the Amazon side of things who had been working on this game are no longer working on this game. They're not fired, but they've all been shuffled over to new projects, and considering the only other game they have announced that's on the books is the MMO, which is garbage, they're probably working on that. Who knows, maybe someday it might be something that barely equates an actual game. Yeah, meanwhile, we're getting a Lord of the Rings show, which is costing way too much money, but let's not even get into that. Speaking of evil companies and Tencent, some people have been pointing out some factoids recently about how much money Epic is losing. I thought I'd counter that bit of news by pointing out that Epic themselves are getting money absolutely dumped on them in the B range with regards to funding from other companies, which is both in terms of investment and in terms of purchasing. There's several of them, several other companies that have been dumping money on Epic. We've got Appaloosa, Bale, Gifford, Fidelity. I think you know who Fidelity is. GIC, T. Rowe Price Associates, Ontario Teachers Pension Plan Board. Don't let the name fool you. They're just as bad as all the rest. Park West, KKR, Alliance Bernstein, Altimeter, Franklin Templeton, Luxor Capital. If none of these sound familiar, that's because these are all investment firms, aka evil corporations that make the world a worse place. And I'd like to sugarcoat that, but honestly, that's just fact at this point, so it's just whatever. Anyways, point being, the two big ones that are dumping money on Epic are Sony, that's a weird one if I'm being honest, and BlackRock. Of all of the investment firms out there, BlackRock is actually one of the worst, and if they just kind of stopped existing, that would legitimately make the world a better place. Now, I'm not saying Epic is evil, I'm just pointing out that Epic is getting money dumped on its face by a lot of investment firms, and you can infer whatever you'd like to from that. Moving on. Yeah, they're called BlackRock, for God's sakes. So, I've only had about 7 people tell me this news, which is funny because I actually caught this pretty early myself. For those of you not aware, the PlayStations suck and are the worst. Oh, sorry. I shouldn't troll like that. There is an issue with the PlayStations, most notably the PlayStation 3, 4, and 5, all of which share the exact same flaw. Here's the core issue. You know what a CMOS battery is, I assume. If you don't worry about it. It keeps track of very minor things like the date and time. It's just a thing there, okay? So, the CMOS battery, any CMOS battery has a shelf life of about a decade, okay? Decent, but it will eventually run dry. Now, in most cases, this doesn't matter. If my CMOS and my motherboard died right now, it'd take me 5 seconds to pop that thing open and put in a new one, and then done. Yeah, tons of them, Imperial Star Destroyer. They're all on the FAQ, too. There's also a button down there that says donation, and then there's Patreon, and I guess that's actually it. So, what's the issue here? Well, the PS3, 4, and 5 all use a CMOS battery. No issue. If you replace the CMOS battery, you need to connect to the PSN in order for it to function. In the PS4's case, that includes functioning at all. Like, even if you have the physical copy of the game, like I have several PS4 games right here, you still need to be able to connect to the PSN in order to be able to get that functioning. Now, this is something that can be fixed. A simple firmware update would fix this. Sony has not spoken out about this yet. I'm kind of hoping that Sony will speak out about this and be like, yeah, no, we'll fix this, because this is a problem. In fact, this is a huge problem. We have already reached the point now where there are PS3s which are having trouble with this because their CMOS batteries have died. Now, you're probably thinking, why is that an issue? The PS3's PSN is actively being shut down now. Any PS3 whose CMOS battery dies within 6 months or so will not, after 6 months, will not be able to connect to the PSN and will no longer function properly. You see the problem? Now, this is one of those long-term problems. I've talked about this before. This NES here, as of about a year and a half or 2 years ago at this point, still works, right? This works just fine. I can get my... Honestly, let's go ahead and use the Sony example. This is my PS1 over here. It works just fine. But it is now within... If this is not fixed officially, we will reach a point where PS3s now, PS4s in a few years, and PS5s in about a decade will actually require custom firmware and, hacking in order to make the consoles function. Now, people are already working on the custom firmware in order to fix this. It is a relatively easy thing to fix. But it is also something that is just terribad, and I'm hopeful that Sony will acknowledge this problem and be like, oh yeah, here you go. And here's the firmware update. Because Sony themselves could fix this extremely easily. It's just done. Doing the custom firmware would actually be kind of an irritation. But doable, I don't even. This is just another byproduct of the always online problem we've talked about several times with regards to many games, with regards to MMOs, or something like Diablo 3, or whatever. There's just several situations where, always online isn't a problem now, per se. I mean, it is a problem now, but it's a really big problem later. It's okay. I'm sure Sony will turn this around, and they will definitely not go the evil route, which they do approximately every other generation, which we're currently in another generation right now. So they're probably going to be evil for the PS5, but then don't worry, the PS6 will come out in a few years, and it'll be awesome again, and they'll start doing good stuff again. Anyways, believe it or not, that's all I got for Loreweek. A relatively short one. The big thing I wanted to talk about was the mini break we're taking, where I'm going to try and absolutely slam some work in order to get this audit project done and get back up to date, and of course, absolutely break my back in order to try and get some LoTR done. I'm so sick of those vines! You have no idea. Like, the vines get to a point where they blanket, and so you're pulling out a vine, and you don't want to snap it. You want to pull it out. So you're trying to pull it out, and you're carrying like several dozen pounds of vines on top of it. So you try to pull a pine on top of that, but that's entangled with these things, and so you pull this one out, and that's entangled here. Oh my god, I hate them so much. Anyways,